I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life, my weekly podcast. This week, a story for the holidays.
Season 3, Chapter 7, A Christmas Tale.
Every year around this time, at least one network reporter will do a feature on the nation of Duvet. I haven't seen one this year, so I thought I'd take a shot at bringing you this heartwarming tale. We talk about Duvet every December because this tiny nation provides over 82% of the world's Christmas trees. Chances are, if you have a live, real Christmas tree in your home for the holidays, it came from the nation of Duvet, aka the Christmas tree country.
Oh, Christmas tree, such pleasure do you bring me.
Indeed, over 97% of Duvet's GDP comes from the growth, harvest, and export of Christmas trees. Spruce, fir, pine, and some cedar, and many cross-pollinated hybrid conifer variants, including the fir pine, the pine fir, the spruder, and the rare but increasingly popular Doogie-Fontaine cypress. Yes, every year those who celebrate Christmas also celebrate the country of Duvet and the exceedingly cheerful Duvenese people who for generations have dedicated their lives to this dendrology.
Oh, Christmas tree, you'll ever be unchanging.
But what do we actually know about the country and the people? I thought this would be a good opportunity to learn. Duvet is nestled just below the precontinental shield and about 37 degrees above the northern equatorial zone, intersecting longitude and latitude of 33.5 north and 19.7 east, respectively. About 6 blocks from the Tropic of Capricorn, turn left at the church and you're almost there. It is bordered on the east by the nation of Taxistan, and on the west by the Manganese Strait, a crooked strait whose waters are shared by the Principality of Rosatia. To the north, the majestic mountain range known for centuries as the Pituitaries, and Duvet's entire southern region is coastal, on the Sea of Granola. It is the cold airs sweeping down from the snow-capped Pituitaries, mixing with the warmer cyclonic backdraft from the Sea of Granola, that provides the perfect climate conditions for the growth of Christmas trees. Annually, the massive Christmas tree harvest takes place on October 31st. That's also their Thanksgiving and Mother's Day. They do not observe or even recognize Halloween. In November, after the harvest, massive cargo ships gather at ports both along the Manganese Strait and the Sea of Granola. The sea-bound ships sail south to Lake Nevertheless, which of course we know not to be an actual lake, but a sea. Then they take the Orio tributary to the much larger Geraldo Rivera, which empties out into the Indian Ocean. The other ships go north along the Manganese to the Whitish Canal, left at the Rock of Johnson, and into the choppy waters of the English Shopping Channel, then on to the Atlantic. Both North and South Ocean access takes about 90 minutes, but can also be well over 2 hours if there's traffic. How did this tiny nation become the world's Christmas tree capital? For that answer, we have to go all the way back to the mid-5th century, when the land we now call Duvet was part of a much larger area known as Insomnia. Insomnia was largely under the rule of the Turpentines and their benevolent monarch, King Fripar. News had recently reached the king's court that Insomnia would soon be under attack, an invasion by the Rotundas, under the command of the ruthless General Foyer. The Rotundas had formed only a generation earlier, disgruntled tax-evading farmers from the regions we now know as Inventory and Vuvuzela. They had begun to organize and march east, taking control of any land they could conquer. Now, even some of the Rotundanites thought Foye was crazy for attempting to march on Insomnia, but he would have none of their insolence. Word got back to the Turpentines that the invasion was planned for the morning of February 31st. That's right, the 31st of February. Most of the world back then was on the Delorean calendar, from Pope Delorean the Short. On this calendar, February had 31 days. November had 24. August had 47 days, while April only had 3. July, okay, never mind. It all worked out to a year in the end. Turpentine was largely a peaceful nation, but under the threat, King Fripar instituted conscription, the draft. Tens of thousands of men, women, and children joined the army. Fripar hired Attila the Hun's younger brother Ron, who had a reputation as a formidable soldier and who had just become available as a freelance commander. He quickly whipped the new army into shape. The battle was to be fought on what we know today as the South Shore beaches of Duvet. Foye had scheduled his invasion for 8 a.m. By 7, Ron the Hun and the Turpentine forces were already on the eastern part of the beach, hiding behind rocks, trees, and small cabana-like structures. His military included the RAF, Ron's Air Force, which in the 5th century meant that men with bows and arrows were hiding in treetops. They waited. At 8 o'clock, no opposing forces were anywhere to be seen. 8:15, 8:30, 8:45, still no one. At precisely 8:53, a few Rotundian infantrymen wandered onto the beach looking for their general and were easily captured. 2 minutes later, a few more, again taken captive. This continued for about the next 4 minutes. By the time General Foye arrived with the remaining soldiers, the ranks had been decimated, so they subsequently retreated into the nearby foothills known as the Cottonelles. What Foye had not realized about the region of Insomnia was that February 31st was the day they went back to daylight savings time. All clocks, sundials, and hourglasses were set 1 hour ahead. That was his little mistake. Failing to do that meant the Rotundas were horribly late to the battle, and this disadvantage cost them the war. A huge insurrection quickly followed. Foye was eventually assassinated by his own troops, and with no clear leader to take his place, the Rotundian forces fell into disarray. Soon the army and even the nomadic nation of Rotunda disbanded, many living in South America under new identities. To this day, only a select few can trace their ancestry back to Rotundian times, and a handful of descendants have attempted to reorganize under the banner of the Kiwanis Club. The battle for the region is known in history as the 7.5-Minute War. There was joy throughout the countryside of Turpentine. King Fripar loved this little area on the Sea of Granola, west to the Manganese, north to the Pituitaries, and vowed that it should never be invaded again. He called it his evergreen garden. Sharing his love for this land and across the mountains was the area known as Nordica, under the reign of Queen Latifah. Fripar and Latifah had been close friends, rumored to be a couple, although they consistently denied that to the press. Be that as it may, they entered into an agreement, the Treaty of Consequence, where both promised to serve and protect this evergreen state. They declared it a provincial territory belonging to both countries. King Fripar appointed Ron the Hun as prime minister. He proved to not only be an adept military man, but a skilled politician and leader. The people loved him. The province of Evergreen thrived under this arrangement for centuries, right through and until King Fripar XIII During this time, they had the world's first female prime minister, Ron's granddaughter Alice. Nordica eventually fell to the Danans, but they observed all the terms of the Treaty of Consequence. The ethnic mix of the province of Evergreen was varied. The largest tribe were the Duvets. In fact, most people there referred to themselves as Duvenese. But there were others, and they coexisted peacefully. There were the Magnolias, the Crustaceans, some Pinot Noirs, and in the northeast, the Negotiables. After a time, a healthy contingent of encyclopedians migrated from the city of Parentheses, occupying the central region. They brought with them medicines, philosophy, theater, and democracy. For centuries, the province survived by turning to agriculture. At first, they grew potatoes, carrots, and other root vegetables. Though these foods helped sustain the population, other nations who imported the products complained they had a distinct pine flavor and found them distasteful. So many farms turned to raising livestock. But again, pine-flavored beef, pork, and chicken did not go over well. It was all of those trees. They were everywhere, and somehow infused the flavor on everything that grew there or grazed upon the terra firma. Duvenese legend has it that a local explorer, Petro Vassilino III, had actually beat Christopher Columbus to the New World by like 6 months. Upon his return, he told the locals at a town hall that the New World would be an ideal market for this new idea, something called unfinished furniture, and that with an abundance of pine throughout the nation, the province of Evergreen was in a perfect position to command the market. En masse, farmers quickly abandoned their crops and livestock for forestry, sawmills, furniture factories, and the like, and began making, then shipping their furniture all over the region and even to the New World. They had high hopes. Unfortunately, they had misunderstood the term unfinished furniture, and they were shipping items like a chair with only 3 legs, half a coffee table, a chiffonier with no drawers, an armoire with no shelves. Nobody liked the products. They were rejected. Business was bad. Many went bankrupt and were forced to return to just raising a few chickens and subsisting on pine-flavored omelets. It looked bleak, very bleak. But then this happened. In the 16th century, a group of devout Christians in Germany began the tradition of setting up decorated trees in their homes at Christmas. It proved to be very popular, and the tradition began to spread throughout Europa. So popular was the practice of Tannenbaums that some years trees were scarce, and the few that might be available were hardly affordable for the masses. Near this time, a descendant of King Friepar, Prince Richard of Starkey, was in Hamburg visiting an aunt for Christmas. Remarking on the shortage of trees, he quipped, "Near where I come from, we have an entire province of Tannenbaums. Next year, remind me to bring a few with me." The following year, he followed up. They sold quickly. The year after, he brought more, and then even more. He set up these Christmas tree lots where Germans flocked by the hundreds, both the high-end and the low-end-brows. Word spread all over the world. These tannins were the bomb, highly superior to any local trees, and always in abundance. Prince Richard was followed by many other entrepreneurs. Soon, the province of Evergreen formed NATB, the National Association of Tannenbaum Exporters. Eventually, trade in Christmas trees was nationalized, and everyone in the province thrived. So much so that during the little-known Prototype Wars, which were actually an early 20th century dress rehearsal for World War I, Germany attempted to invade the province of Evergreen, simply to gain control of the trees. Once again, they were saved by the Turpentines. Somehow, they did manage to remain neutral in both world wars. But in 1947, there was an attempted annexation by Russia. The Russian soldiers proved to be no match for the state's pine needle cannons and were quickly defeated.
Ouch! Run!
After that, a formal request was sent to the League of Nations, who, in their formative years, were sponsored by Macy's department store, the Macy's League of Nations, the MLN. Today, the document still exists on Macy's stationery and signed by the Secretary General, Matt LeBlanc, no relation, declaring the province of Evergreen as its own sovereign nation, a democratic republic, hitherto and heretofore to be known as Duvet, dated February 31st, 1948, in honor of the old DeLorean calendar, but with an asterisk March 2nd. The document can still be seen today. It is under glass, sitting on an unfinished table in Starkey Castle, the winter ski lodge home of that royal family. The rest, as they say, is history. Well, I guess this whole thing was history, but you know what I mean. For the rest of the 20th century and still today, this nation was the Christmas tree capital of the world. It is all they have ever done for hundreds of years. Well, there was that small side hustle in the 1950s when they attempted to make car air fresheners. They used real miniature pine trees made to hang off the rear view, but the tiny little pine needles shed all over the car and began to poke people. Well, actually, there was a host of issues. There is not a large Duvenese diaspora around the planet. Most Duvenese never leave their beautiful country other than to go on vacation. Speaking of which, many actually vacation on the Sea of Granola or on the nearby Greek islands of the Mamas and Papas. Their capital, Creek Alley, is actually a sister city to Duvet's national capital of Flask. There are, of course, some famous Duvenese out there. NHL hockey legend Orland Kurtenbach, Nobel Prize winner Wendell Kendall Handelberg. Anyone who's ever used the Handelberg tongs in high school chem lab should know that name. And of course, international hip-hop star Figgy Stubbs. Other than that, they are largely a nation unto their own, and content to be so. Providing the world with Christmas trees is mostly their only contact with anyone outside of their country. Tourism is discouraged. The entire country only has one small hotel, and it's only open 3 months a year. Duvet Disney World actually closed while still under construction in 1992. And there is one more really interesting factoid. Though largely Christian and great celebrators of Christmas, almost no one in Duvet practices the tradition of a Christmas tree. Isn't that ironic? Oh, they put up lights and wreaths and nativity scenes, but no one has a tree. Instead, Duvenese honor the ritual adopted by the ancient corduroys, the Christmas cushion. In days of yore, when gifts were bestowed upon royalty, they were often done so on a cushion. So, to annually honor the King of Kings, each home and many businesses in Duvet set up a Christmas cushion. They can vary in size, but must be placed on a north wall, and should be the colors of Duvet's flag: mauve, fuchsia, and hunter green. During the period known as Advent, each day members of a household in a predetermined order pin a candy treat or a small gift to the cushion. They can be wrapped or unwrapped. By Christmas Eve, the cushion is covered in treats, and the head of the household gathers the family and distributes the treats and gifts to everyone around. A toast is made with local pine-flavored wine, and a traditional feast is enjoyed: quarter chicken, baked potato, side salad. More recent generations have substituted French fries. On Christmas Day, it's church in the morning and then a day of family activity. In the north, usually skiing the Pituitaries. On the southern coast, pine cone beach fires. And in the capital city of Flask, many go to Rockefeller Plaza see the giant 24-meter cushion set up in the square. There, throughout December, people are encouraged to pin gifts and treats on the giant cushion. And on Christmas Day, dignitaries hand them out to orphans and those suffering from gift insecurity. To receive the gifts, orphans simply have to have 2 pieces of government ID and must be accompanied by an adult. Anyway, a happy holiday and Merry Christmas from me to you. I hope you enjoyed this little history lesson and that it adds meaning to your Christmas tree. I leave you now with the sweet melody of Duvay's national anthem. I hope I say this right. Nis schwitzen pequeño detruch. In English, don't sweat the small stuff.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.